the Black Blogger here on the 127th birthday of Zora Neale Hurston. She was born January 7th, 1891. I'm going to do a special celebration to Zora. I'm going to read a couple of pieces. One, a letter to the editor that she wrote to the Orlando Sentinel on August the 11th, 1955, regarding the Supreme Court decision of 1954, Brown versus the Board of Education. In the other, I'm going to do an essay that she wrote when she first realized she was colored. I hope you enjoy it. This is the Black Blogger. This is Black Man Read Aloud. This is, if you don't know your history, how do you expect to make plans for your future? August the 11th, 1955. Editor. I promised God and some other responsible characters, including a bench of bishops, that I was not going to part my lips concerning the U.S. Supreme Court decision on ending segregation in the public schools of the South. But since a lot of time has passed and no one seems to touch on what to me appears to be the most important point in the hassle, I break my silence just this once. Consider me just thinking out loud. The whole matter revolves around the self-respect of my people. How much satisfaction can I get from a court order for somebody to associate with me who does not wish me near them? The American Indian has never been spoken of as a minority, and chiefly because there is no wine in the Indian. Certainly he fought and valiantly for his lands, and rightfully so, but it's inconceivable of an Indian to seek forcible association with anyone. His well-known pride and self-respect would save him from that. I take the Indian position. Now the great clamor will arise in certain quarters that I seek to deny the Negro children of the South their rights, and therefore I am one of those handkerchief-head niggers who bow low before the white man and sell out my people out of cowardness. However, the analytical glance will show you that that is not the case. If there are not adequate Negro schools in Florida, and there is some residual, some inherent and unchangeable quality in white schools, impossible to duplicate anywhere else, then I am the first to insist that the Negro children of Florida be allowed to share this boon. But if there are adequate Negro schools and prepared instructors and instruction, then there is nothing different except the presence of white people. For this reason, I regard the ruling of the Supreme Court as insulting rather than honoring my race. Since the days of the never to be sufficiently deplored Reconstruction, there has been current the belief that there is no greater delight to Negroes in association, physical association with whites, the doctrine of the white mare. Those familiar with the habits of mules are aware that any mule, if not restrained, will automatically follow a white mare. Dishonest mule traders made money out of this knowledge in the old days. Lead a white mare along a country road and slyly open the gate, and the mules in the lot will run out and follow this mare. This ruling being conceived and brought forward in a sly political medium with eyes on 1956, and brought forth in the same spirit and for the same purpose. It is clear that they have taken the old notion to heart and acted upon it. It is a cunning opening of the barnyard gate with the white mare ambling past. We are expected to hasten pell-mell after her. It is most astonishing that this should be tried just when the nation is exerting itself to shake off the evils of communist penetration. It is to be recalled that Moscow, being made aware of this folk belief, made it to the main plank in their campaign to win the American Negro from the 1920s on. It was a come-on stuff. Join the party and get yourself a white wife or husband. To supply the expected demand, the party had scraped up this and that off the park benches and skid roads and held them in stock for us. The highest types of Negroes were held to be just panting to get hold of one of these objects. Seeing how flat that program fell, it is astonishing that it would be so soon revived. Politics does indeed make strange bedfellows. But the South had better beware in another direction. While it is being frantic over the segregation ruling, it had better keep its eyes open for more important things. One instance of the government by fiat has been rammed down its throat. It is possible that the end of segregation is not here and never meant to be here at present, but the attention of the South directed on what was calculated to keep us busy while more ominous things were brought to pass. The stubborn South and Midwest kept this party from being dragged further to the left than it was during the New Deal. But what if it is contemplated to do away with the two-party system and arrive at government by administrative decree? No questions allowed and no information given out from the administrative department. We could get more rulings on the same subject, and far-reaching any day it pays to weigh every saving and action, however trivial, as indicating a trend. In the ruling on segregation, the unsuspecting nation may have witnessed a trial balloon, a relatively safe one since it is sectional and on a matter not likely to arouse other sections of the nation to support of the South. If it goes off fairly well, a precedent has been established. Government by fiat can replace the Constitution. You don't have to credit me with too much intelligence and penetration, just so you watch carefully and think. Meanwhile, personally, I am not delighted. I am not persuaded and elevated by the white mare technique. Negro schools in the state are in very good shape and on the improve. We are fortunate in having Dr. D.E. Williams as head and driving force of Negro instruction. Dr. Williams is relentless in his drive to improve both physical equipment and teacher quality. He has accomplished wonders in the 20 years past, and it is expected to be that he will double that in the future. It is well known I have no sympathy nor respect for the tragedy of color schools of thought among us whose fountainhead is the pressure group concerned in this court ruling. I see no tragedy in being too dark to be invited to a white school social affair. The Supreme Court would have pleased me more if they had concerned themselves about enforcing the compulsory education provisions for Negroes in the South as done for white children. The next 10 years would have been better spent in appointing truant officers and looking after conditions in the home from which the children come, used to the limit that we already have. Them's my sentiments, and I'm sticking by them. Grow from within. Ethical and cultural desegregation. It is a contradiction in terms to scream race pride and equality while at the same time spurning Negro teachers and self-association. That old white mare business can go racking on down the road for all I care. Zora Neale Hurston. How It Feels to Be Colored Me by Zora Neale Hurston. I remember the very first day that I became colored. A genius of the South, a novelist, a folklorist, an anthropologist, those are the words that Alice Walker has inscribed on the tombstone of Zora Neale Hurston. In this personal essay, first published in The World Tomorrow, May 1928, the acclaimed author of Their Eyes Were Watching God explores her own sense of identity through a series of memorable examples and striking metaphors. As Sharon L. Jones has observed, Hurston's essay challenges the reader to consider race and ethnicity as fluid, evolving, and dynamic rather than static and unchanging. How does it feel to be a colored me? I am colored, but I offer nothing in the way of extenuating circumstances except the fact that I am the only Negro in the United States whose grandfather on their mother's side was not an Indian chief. I remember the very day I became colored. Up to my 13th year, I lived in this little Negro town of Eatonville, Florida. It was exclusively a colored town. The only white people I knew passed through town going to or coming from Orlando. The native whites rode dusty horses. The northern tourists chugged down the sandy village road in automobiles. The town knew the Southerners and never stopped cane chewing when they passed, but the Northerners were something else again. They were peered at cautiously from behind curtains by the timid. The more venturesome would come out on the porch to watch them go past and got just as much pleasure out of the tourists as the tourists got out of the village. The front porch might seem a daring place for the rest of the town, but it was a gallery seat for me. My favorite place was atop the gatepost, a cement box for a born first nighter. Not only did I enjoy the show, but I didn't mind the actors knowing that I liked it. I usually spoke to them in passing. I'd wave at them, and when they returned my salute, I would say something like this: "Howdy do well, I thank you, where you going?" Usually the automobile or the horse paused at this, and after a quick exchange of compliments, I would probably go a piece of the way with them, as we say in the furthest Florida. If one of my family happened to come to the front in time to see me, of course negotiations would be rudely broken off. But even so, it was clear that I was the first welcome to our state Floridian, and I hope the Miami Chamber of Commerce would please take notice. During this period, white people differed from color to me only in that they rode through town and never lived there. They liked to hear me speak pieces and sing, and wanted to see me dance the Par Me La, and give me generously of their small silver for doing these things, which seemed strange to me, for I wanted to do them so much that I needn't bribing to stop, and only they didn't know it. The colored people gave me no dimes. They deplored any joyful tendencies in me, but I was their Zora nevertheless. I belonged to them, to the nearby hotels, to the county, everybody's Zora. But changes came in the family when I was 13 and I was sent to school in Jacksonville. I left Eatonville, the town of Orlando, as a Zora. When I disembarked from the riverboat at Jacksonville, she was no more. It seemed that I had suffered a sea change. I was not Zora of Orange County anymore. I was now a little colored girl. I found out in certain ways in my heart as well as in the mirror. I became a fast brown wanted not to rub nor run. But I am not tragically colored. There is no great sorrow dammed up in my soul, not lurking behind my eyes. I don't mind it at all. I do not belong to the sobbing school of Negrohood who holds that nature somehow had given them a low-down, dirty deal, and whose feelings were all but about it. Even in the helter-skelter skirmish that is my life, I have seen that world is to the strong, regardless of the little pigmentation, more or less. No, I do not weep at the world. I am too busy sharpening my oyster knife. Someone is always at my elbow reminding me that I am the granddaughter of slaves. It fails to register depression with me. Slavery is 60 years in the past. The operation was successful, and the patient is doing well, thank you. The terrible struggle that made me an American out of the potential slave set on the line. Reconstruction said get set, and a generation before said go. I am off to a flying start, and I must not halt in the stretch to look behind and weep. Slavery is the price I paid for civilization, and the choice was not with me. It is a bully adventure and worth all that I have paid through my ancestors for it. No one on earth ever had a greater chance for glory. The world to be won and nothing to be lost. It is thrilling to think to know that at any act of mine I shall get twice as much praise or twice as much blame. It is quite exciting to hold the center of the national stage with the spectators not knowing whether to laugh or to weep. The position of my white neighbor is much more difficult. No brown specter pulls up a chair beside him when I sit down to eat. No dark ghost thrusts his leg against mine in bed. The game of keeping one has is never so exciting as the game of getting. I don't always feel colored. Every now and I often achieve the unconscious Zora of Eatonville before the Hager. I feel most colored when I'm thrown against the sharp white background. For instance, at Bernard. Beside the waters of the Hudson, I felt my race. Among the thousands white persons, I am a dark rock surged upon and overswept. But through it all, I remain myself. When covered by waters, I am in the ebb, but reveals me again. Sometimes it is the other way around. A white person is set down in our midst, but the contrast is sharp for me. For instance, when I sit in a drafty basement, that is, the New World Cabaret with a white person, my color comes. We enter chatting about any little nothing that we have in common and are seated by the jazz waiters. In the abrupt way that the jazz orchestras have, this one plunges into a number. It loses no time in the circumlocations, but it gets right down to business. It constricts the thorax and splits the heart with its tempo and narcotic harmonies. This orchestra grows rambunctious, rears on its hind legs and attacks the tonal veil with primitive fury, rendering it, clawing it until it breaks through to the jungle beyond. I follow those heathen follow them exultantly. I dance wildly inside myself. I yell within. I whoop. I shake my assegai above my head. I whirl it true to the mark. Yo! I am in the jungle and living in the jungle way. My face is painted red and yellow and my body is painted blue. My pulse is throbbing like a war drum. I want to slaughter something, give pain, give death to what I do not know, but the piece ends. The men of the orchestra wipe their lips and rest their fingers. I creep back slowly to the veneer we call civilization with the last tone and find the white friend sitting motionless in his seats, smoking calmly. Good music they have here, he remarks, drumming the table with his fingertips. Music, the great bombs of purple and red emotion have not touched him. He has only heard what I felt. He is far away and I see him but dimly. Across the ocean and the continent have fallen between us. He is so pale that his whiteness then and I am so colored. At certain times I have no race. I am me. When I set my hat at a certain angle and saunter down 7th Avenue, Harlem City, feeling as snooty as the lines in front of the 42nd Street Library, for instance. So far as my feelings are concerned, Peggy Hopkins Joyce on the Boulay, Michigan, with her gorgeous raiment and stately carriage, knees knocking together in the most aristocratic manner, have nothing on me. The cosmic Zora emerges. I belong to no race nor time. I am the eternal feminine with strings of beads. I have no separate feeling about being an American citizen and colored. I am merely a fragment of the great soul that surges within the boundaries. My country right or wrong. Sometimes I feel discriminated against, but it does not make me angry. It merely astounds me. How, how can any deny themselves the pleasure of my company? It's beyond me. But in the main, I feel like a brown bag of miscellany propped against a wall in a company with other bags, white, red, and yellow. Pour out the contents, and there is discovered a jumble of small things, priceless and worthless, a first wood of diamond, an empty stool, bits of broken glass, limps of string, a key to a door long since crumbled away, a rusty knife blade, old shoes saved for a road that never was and never will be, a nail bent under the weight of things too heavy for any nail, a dried flower or two, still a little fragrant. In your hand is the brown bag. On the ground before you is the jumble it held, so much like the jumble in the bags could they be emptied, that all might be dumped in a single heap and the bags refilled without altering the contents of any greatly. A bit of colored glass more or less would not matter. Perhaps that is how the great stuffer of bags filled them in the first place. Who knows? Zora Neale Hurston was a word genius. She was a remarkable black woman. And today, Black America should celebrate the 127th birthday of this great woman of words. Have a great Sunday, and may God bless you.